Welcome to the Rising Society podcast. I'm Shane Kennedy.
I'm Nico Galliano, the rejected gentleman.
All right, and tonight I'm very excited to talk about this.
Dude, it's going to be a fun topic.
All right, so we're going to be talking about ghosts.
Absolutely.
And the things that make you go bump in the night, right?
Dude, yeah, that's scary, right?
Oh, I forgot to put my glasses on and take them off. So
Okay, well,
so I just did that.
I'm glad that's checked
Yeah.
off.
Okay, so first thing, what do you think about ghosts?
Oh, we're jumping right into it.
Let's jump right into it.
Oh, I wanted to start off with a fun fact real quick, just so like people listening.
All right, yeah, throw it out.
Yeah. So just so people listening aren't like, oh shit, man, I believe in ghosts, or the guys are like, of course I don't believe in ghosts. Why would they pick such a niche topic? Or the other people that think they're alone out there. It was a poll, and I want to source it, but of course I forgot. It's almost 50% of America. It's 46% of the people in the United States think that ghosts are real. And they ain't saying what capacity, but just so people know they're not alone. This is a very like split thing right down the middle. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. 46% of people think there's ghosts, but take that with a grain of salt because I think it's like almost 10% of the population thinks that vampires are real too. But that's a different discussion.
So, yeah, what percentage think vampires are real?
It's like 7% of the United States population think that there's vampirical organizations out there and that vampires are like part of like the blood drives and shit like that. It's like modern day vampires and shit.
I agree there are vampirical organizations out there. But you know, and the first example that comes to my mind is the IRS.
Yeah, the IRS. Yeah, you know what? I now believe in vampires.
You know, yeah. So anyway, all right. So ghosts, and you know, very first thing I start thinking about whenever I think about ghosts are things like Ghostbusters. And then movies have been made about ghosts.
Yeah, our infatuation with like the spiritual, right?
And you know, actually, that is something that I've found very interesting. Is as our culture has become less religious, and has adopted atheism, it's like it can't stay atheist for very long because atheism is absurd. So it seems like there's a growing obsession with the paranormal in our society. You know, there's a growing obsession with horror movies. There's a growing obsession with all kinds of stuff. And I think a lot of that has to do with that people are less religious. And because of that, they're able to understand the phenomena that they encounter around them less and less and less. And so that whole category of what we'd call like supernatural phenomena, they become fascinated by it because it's stuff they don't understand. And they don't even have the framework to understand it.
Yeah, but that's a like history repeats itself, right? So to your exact point is like you said, we can't explain it, but that's not a new concept. That's been done throughout time. Maybe not with, you know, like necessarily ghosts or evil entities, but of the mythological. Let's take. So anytime a society couldn't explain stuff, right? And you're right. It's usually when they came off of, well, not necessarily it wasn't. So are you specifically talking the Christian faith? Because societies have always done that on some level, like vampires and werewolves, and that's Greek, right? The Greeks made werewolves.
Yeah, the Greeks were into werewolves, and I think vampires originated in Greek, in the Greek understanding of the world.
Yeah, they did a lot of mythological creatures. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
but those cultures were not had not moved into atheism to become materialist atheists, and that was really an innovation of the British and the Germans in like the 17th century or so. But
I guess my point is, why would that be a correspondence? So like if these other cultures, you're right, they didn't go into atheism, but they did have these these creatures that they made. So why is there an infatuation with atheists with let's just use the word evil for the sake? So I'm just umbrelling.
You know, for a lot of atheists, I think a lot of the reason the atheists get into stuff like tarot cards, Ouija boards, they get really, really into paranormal stuff, is because I think they see a glimmer of hope in it. That
like life's not fine. It's not the end,
right?
That they could.
Yeah, that maybe there's more to you than just a bunch of accidental chemical reactions.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah,
and I think that's kind of what it is. And then, but the problem is a lot of the paranormal stuff. If you get into that stuff, it's going to spell bad. It's going to be bad news for you. So one thing I do want to point out as far as like Ghostbusters and stuff, and that type of the like cultural type of ghost in like pop culture,
Yeah.
is they're like cartoony, malevolent characters. And I actually don't. I think that might describe some real ghosts, but it doesn't describe the majority of them.
Well, dude, no, a big genre right now is definitely you have the whole horror genre right now. I think one of like the number one trending movies is that new one. It actually looks pretty,
Oh, you're talking about
really-
Nefarious?
No, it's
Because I really want to see that movie.
no, this is a new one. It's I don't know. Regardless, that's like you have the paranormal movies, you have the Insidious movies, and those are not cartoonish ghosts. I mean, a lot of them are actually like they'll have the Catholic Church in them doing stuff like what's the one where they have the priest that comes in? Not Exorcist, those are old, but they have one where like they talk about like the whole Catholic sect and how they have a
The Exorcist.
the Exorcist division. I'm trying to think of the word for it, but like a lot of these movies are very frightening. Like if you watch them, they're not frightening. No one's scared of them, but like the jump scares, the breath take away, and it always leaves you like with that little bit of thing when you're in the shower and you're washing and you close your eyes and it's the scariest 5 seconds of your life for some reason. It's those little moments of doubt that it gives you, like, what if there is something under the bed or in that dark room or shit like that. So what do you? Because you were saying like it's more like a cartoony like play on ghosts.
Well, yeah. But in reality, ghosts, I believe, are either disembodied spirits of humans. Like disembodied souls. I guess it would be the right way to put it. The word ghost in English, it comes from the same root word that the words Ghoul and Geist in German, meaning like a disembodied like human spirit. Mm-hmm. So you've got the category of human soul, of disembodied human souls, and then you've also got demons, which would be like fallen angels, and then you've got and then I think you could also probably categorize in the category of what we would call ghosts, like just general paranormal activity. You can also have angels as well. So these are the things I want for us to kind of explore is get to the root of like what are ghosts.
Yeah, let's hit on that right there. So you have your angelic beings, which we're going to, I assume, say are on the good side, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
You have your demonic ones, which are fallen angels, which would be in bad. What is when you say the statement that these are basically like disembodied souls?
Well, they're souls without bodies, right?
Souls without bodies, right? Are you saying that are they in the middle? Are they neutral? Are they one or the other? Did they have unfinished task? What are you saying on that?
So I think when you get down to it, you've got a few different types of disembodied souls.
Yeah,
you've got
these are outside of the angelic and the demonic.
right.
These are
these are humans.
Yes,
These are humans without bodies.
Yes,
and these are humans. So you can have souls of the damned, which is a very I think a very rare occurrence. But remember that if you're a Christian, you regard God as a loving father. Mm-hmm. That's what God wants to be regarded as, is a loving father. And remember that fathers will sometimes allow things to happen to us to try to motivate us to do the right thing. A father may not necessarily correct you if you're doing something wrong. He may allow something to happen to you that may jog you out of doing the wrong thing and into doing the good thing. It might be like a wake-up call. So God may allow for souls of the damned for you to encounter a soul of the damned for your own good. To wake you up to something that you're not doing right. And wake you up to the necessity of you making things of you getting your life back onto the right track, whatever that might look like.
Why would they be trapped on Earth? Why wouldn't they be in hell?
Well, a soul of the damned is someone who resides in hell. But God may allow them to come to Earth for some reason to purify someone. Generally speaking.
Okay.
Now, the other category, outside of the souls of the damned, that actually this is the category that I think makes up the majority of what we would call ghosts, are ghosts that are kind of stuck, that have not made their souls that haven't made it to heaven yet. They're souls that would be like in purgatory. Yeah. And it's interesting that in pop culture, we have a notion of that whenever we say that ghosts are dead people with unfinished business. They have things they have to finish on Earth. Well, I think that is a bit of a it's a bit of a misunderstanding. It's a bit of a mistruth because really what ghosts would be are people that are or of this category would be people that are in purgatory, which purgatory is a place or even a state that not just Catholics but a lot of Anglicans and a lot of Orthodox believe exist, which is the process by which people that have died. It's like the outskirts of heaven. Mm-hmm. It's like the outer outskirts, and before you have to be perfect to get into heaven. And purgatory is that process by which your soul is detached from the negative things of this world.
It's like a soul car wash,
right? That's a perfect example.
It's
a perfect way of describing it.
Yeah, like it's like a detox center for drug addicts, right? You have to let go. These are maybe souls that, like you said, from my understanding, I'm also Catholic, so from my understanding of how it was explained to me, are they're souls that were good people. They believed in Jesus, but as we all have sin, they were so in love with the physical, the actual world, that they have to detach, and it's taking them longer. Even though their time on Earth is over, they still want to be of the Earth. So they're like resisting, basically. Still, they're so in love with whatever it was, not unfinished business. But just like you said, you have to be in a total state of bliss, right? A total state of purity to get into heaven. And you can even go a step further and look at when you watch someone suffering through some kind of a crisis, physical ailments, especially as people get old, they suffer more. Mm-hmm. And in many ways, that suffering is a gift from God, because what's happening when they're suffering, they're detaching. Mm-hmm. From things that they shouldn't be attached to in this world, and what that does, there's the whole notion in Catholic and Orthodox circles and in some Anglican circles and stuff that suffering is like shortening someone's time in purgatory. Well, that's the reason that they would say something like that, is that the suffering process, it kind of accelerates your detachment from bad things in this world. You believe that?
Yes.
You believe that suffering shortens your sentence in purgatory?
I don't think it's necessarily that suffering in and of itself. I don't think you can say like, okay, this person suffered 100 hours on Earth, so that's 100 hours docked off of their time in purgatory. What I think it is, I think it's an opportunity that makes the path toward proper detachment and proper orientation toward heaven. I think God gives that to people as a gift to make it easier for them.
Got it. Okay.
Because nothing makes it easier for you to turn your eyes to heaven than for you to be suffering here on Earth.
That is true. Think about it. How many times have people been in situations where they've lost or feel that they've lost, right? Let's say feel that they've lost all options, all hope, all control, all power. The situation, their spouse gets sick, and the doctors are like, "It's not looking good. We've done everything we can." Right? It's the first thing they do.
Yeah.
God, please. They don't have to be religious. They'll pull out anything they can. They will humble themselves, drop to their knees. I've seen it 1,000 times, and just be like, "If there's anything up there, please." Right? It's the first thing you turn to when you're suffering, when you're in pain, when you feel powerless. You try to turn towards it's almost a natural state. Even if they don't actually say it. That people think it. I've had these conversations with many people. I was actually listening to someone say, I'm going to repeat something I heard, and I don't remember the exact story of it, but the guy was a very successful businessman, and he had I think it was his wife, might have been his girlfriend, and she got pregnant. And it all happened really fast. He wasn't planning on having a kid, didn't want a kid. They went through it, and she delivered the baby, healthy baby. It was a baby boy. And he was like, I'm going to go get some coffee. I'll be right back, right? And on the way down the elevator, he was thinking, because it's been 24 hours now, right? It's the next day. He was thinking, am I going to be loyal to my business? Because this is what I've done my whole life. I've been very wealthy. I love it. I've always enjoyed it. Or am I going to be a family man now? Because I kind of got to pick. It's very hard to do both. And he decided as he was pouring his coffee, I'm going to be a family man. I've made enough money. I can step back from the businesses and still just a little more hands off, even though I love it. I'm going to dedicate myself to my family. And he got to the top of the elevator, went through, and the doctor told his wife died of an aneurysm. She's dead. So all he had was the baby boy. And the point is, like, at that exact moment, he said that he literally, because he was never overly religious, that he went to they had the chapels in the hospitals, and he fell to his knees.
Well, that became his vocation, was that kid. You know,
exactly.
Was putting everything into
the
that kid.
The second he decided that, I'm going to be a family man, it just shows you can't take anything for granted. Right. And when people do feel powerless or anything like that, the first place, they got to turn to something. And a lot of people get angry with God, and they try to walk away from him when he does things like this because we don't understand it. Why would any God allow? That's the thing you hear the most. Why would God allow this to happen? And then, that's a different conversation. But they're still, they tried to deny him, but they're actually angry with him is what it is. You know what I mean?
But two things. That suffering is a gift to them, whether they realize it or not, because God is a loving Father, and in allowing that suffering to happen, he's making it easier for them to orient themselves toward heaven. And something else too is that something I always bring up to people whenever they bring up how they ask the question, how can a loving God allow suffering or allow evil in the world? Well, the thing I always like to point out to them is, he hated the suffering and despised the break that humanity experienced between himself and our ancestors, Adam and Eve, in the garden, so much. He despised that chasm, and he remedied it by incarnating as a human and dying for our sins.
Correct. Yeah.
And suffering the most tragic, humiliating death any individual has ever experienced. So let's
veer back on.
Let's get back on course.
Yeah.
So the thing is, people that are in purgatory, which remember there's a lot of whenever you say the word purgatory, there's a lot of, it's a buzzword, and it connotates a lot of false notions in people's minds. But all that purgatory means, it's the place or time that you spend before entering heaven, to where you're perfected, and that perfection happens by perfecting your soul, and it's perfecting your soul by you detaching from all of the unheavenly, attachments that your soul had on earth. And the thing is, you think about it, it's not like when someone dies, they don't suddenly just become perfect. Mm-hmm. When someone dies, their soul remains exactly as it was when they were in their body. Mm-hmm. And so purgatory is really, it's really a blessing, because God cannot exist within the presence of the unperfect. So now the thing is, God does allow souls in purgatory to come to earth.
I was just about to say, so if you have the damned spirits and all these other spirits are going into purgatory to become, sinless, basically, to get into heaven, is that where you're saying that these earth good spirits are coming from?
Yeah. What's interesting is throughout history, A lot of Christian saints and mystics would encounter ghosts. For people that were very holy individuals, it was a very common thing throughout history for them to encounter ghosts. And there was always one thing that ghosts would ask of them. And it was never some big, like a lot of ghost movies and stuff, a ghost will appear to someone and they'll say, "Hey, but before I died, I didn't put this in my will. I intended to leave this to this person in my will, but I didn't. So I'm stuck. I can't enter heaven until I get that taken care of." Well, that's never what it is. They're always asking one thing. They're always asking, "Can you pray for me?" And the thing is, prayers help people. Prayers help the soul of someone before they enter heaven. It helps someone detach from the negative things that their soul is attached to in purgatory, just as prayers help here on earth.
Yeah.
Praying for someone, and I think it's in the book of James where he talks about James, Paul, Jesus,
Mary, yeah.
They all talk about the importance of praying for one another and the importance of prayers. And so souls in purgatory, I believe God allows them to come to earth and seek prayer, or will even allow them to come to earth to do good for someone here. So here I'll give you an example. And I don't know if I've ever told you this. My grandmother saw a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Nani?
Nani?
Yeah, Nani, back in 1966. And it was I believe that this was from purgatory. My great grandfather had just died. It was in June of 1967, maybe, or maybe it was sometime. It was in the late 60s. But he passed away, and it was really hard on my grandmother. It was really, really hard on her. Very, very, very hard. It put her through a very, very difficult time. Well,
your great grandfather died in 1967?
Yes, yeah, great grandfather. But my grandmother saw him. So this is what happened. It was a couple weeks after he died, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after he died, and she was having a really, really hard time. She was in a steep depression. Really, she was having a really, really hard time with it. She was in a really, really dark place, and it was just her and my aunt, who was like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years old at the time.
Okay.
In the house. My mom was actually out of state visiting family.
Mm-hmm.
When all this happened. Anyway, my grandmother, she said it was already dark outside. It was like 8 or 9 p.m. She heard a knock on the door.
Mm-hmm.
And she went and she opened the door, and she opened the door, and it was her father. My great grandfather, who had just died 2 or 3 weeks before. And Nani said that she looked at him and she said, "Poppy," and she said she completely forgot he had died because he was right there.
Yeah, it's such a shock, right?
Yeah. Well, but she said she all the feelings she had, all the depression. She said it all disappeared because she saw him, and the very first thing she thought was come in, and she said that she grabbed for him and he disappeared. Now, this is the crazy thing. I told you my aunt was about 2 or 3 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing that she remembers in the course of her life, was looking up and seeing her grandfather at the door.
Really?
So it wasn't just my grandmother that saw him. It was my aunt that saw him as well. So I think and my family believe that God allowed my grandfather, that God allowed my great grandfather to visit my grandmother, his daughter, in that moment, to let her know that he was okay and that everything is going to be okay. And that's an example of the type of of ghost. You know, I think that's the most common type of ghost story. It's something like that. And you know, when it's not something scary, you know, the story doesn't get told a whole lot. You know,
it dies quickly.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, they're not going to make they're not going to make a movie about what I just told you.
Bullshit. Have you ever seen the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze?
Oh, well, this isn't anything like that either.
What about Angels in the Outfield, man? There's a lot of good ghost movies out there where the ghosts are, you know.
Well, so I guess what my point is that I think God does allow the souls that are in purgatory to come and not like finish unfinished business, but I think He does allow them to come and do an act of love. You know, and I think in many ways, you know, I mean, really when you zoom out and you think about it, getting detached from the bad things of this world really means thinking about yourself less. You know, and if you have a soul who really wants to go and do something in their disembodied state that's going to help someone else, that's an act of love, especially to a family member that they know is hurting. I do think as a merciful Father, in certain circumstances, God will grant that.
Well, I mean, He did it for us, right? And we're in God's image. I mean, at the end of the day, your selfishness and your love for others is what truly defines who you are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no one cares about the other stuff. You could be the most successful person on the planet. Eventually, you'll be forgotten. It's the people that are directly involved in your life when you do something and you trust and love and stuff like that. Those are the people you truly affect. You affect generations, essentially. Think about it. I mean, we're getting off topic again. Yes.
Well, and you know, and this is another thing I want to say is something that people will always say too is like, you know, communing with the dead is condemned in the Bible,
like clairvoyance, right?
Yeah, like necromancy and all that type of stuff. You know that stuff. It's condemned in the Bible. But something I think we need to ask is, what do you mean by dead? You know, the thing that I would argue.
Do you think they're talking to demons that we're going with this?
Well, that, and also too, I think that the damned, the souls of the damned are dead. You know, because they're as far away from God as they can possibly they're as far away from God as they can possibly be. Now, on the other hand, people that are in that state before they enter heaven, or even people that are in heaven, I'd argue in many ways they're more alive than we are.
I could agree with that.
So I mean, I'm not now. The thing is, the only legitimate way for you to have any kind of like what you would call communication with them, it's certainly not through a psychic or through a witch. You know, it would only, you know, you're not to seek them, you know, according to the Bible, but it's certainly it's permissible to accept whatever they've come to do, as long as it is within the framework of God's will. You know, and also, and I guess one last thing I'll say before I shut up is Jesus always said, you'll know them by their fruits. You know, and if you have some hazy figure that shows up that just terrifies you, and it shows up every night and it's like ooga booga, you know, and it's terrifying you, that's probably not something that's probably not a soul from purgatory that's coming to try to do some kind of earthly good for you. It's probably not something of God. It's something very different from being of God. You know, it's probably a fallen angel, or it's like a soul of the damned or something. But I would not say that is something that's inherently good. But so let's move on to other categories. So we've talked about, like, we talked earlier about like souls of the damned, which I don't really think there's a whole lot to talk about there. Like,
I don't think
they're souls without bodies that have gone to hell. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to talk about there. And then there are the souls in purgatory, you know, And then there are souls of people that are in heaven, which Christians, we call those people saints. They're people that have made it into heaven, and the end result of someone going through the state of purgatory, when they're perfected, that's when they enter heaven and they become a saint. So now throughout history, saints, after they have long long died here on earth and gone on to be with the Lord, saints make appearances here on earth.
Yeah.
So, and then you also have angels. Angels come and deliver messages. Angels come and do things. Now, angels do not have bodies. They're purely spiritual beings without bodies.
Yeah, correct.
So, all right. So what do you have to say? I can tell you've got something.
Yeah, I'm going to take a turn on it. So I do want to get back to the angelic and the demonic, right? Because I think that's a whole category there. Mm-hmm. As for the damned souls, is that you? Yeah. So as for the damned souls, like you said, I don't think there's a lot of page fillers there, right? And then I can even agree with the purgatory thing, the acts of great love. One thing that I think, at least this is my perspective on it, is I truly think when it said that we are made in God's image, I take that 100%. Like, I truly believe God made us in his image to be like him as much as possible. So when we do anything that goes against God, so like atrocities against him, great sin, right? Mm-hmm. Missing the bullseye, just outside of the realm of perfection. Let's say people always say they see ghosts at like World War II locations and stuff like that, or they'll see ghosts in buildings where great tragedies have happened, right? I don't necessarily think those are wandering spirits. What I think it is there's areas where such great atrocities happened, and the vice versa, where such miracles and great love and things happen that you almost feel an energy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you can go to some of these battlefields and people will be like, oh, it's eerie. Like, you can feel it in the atmosphere. And then you go to these other places and they're almost like mystical, like all the stress has been released from you. Like, the place you're walking is almost like holy ground, right? Well, what I think it is these energies are there, right? And you get the sense, and being in God's image, what I think can happen is God's not bound by time, correct? I'm going to stay with me on this. Yeah. Exactly. So this is kind of crazy thought, but God's not bound by time. He always has been. Always, he knows, infinite future, as much as far as you can go in the future and in the past, right? So what I think it is when we're in these areas, we almost tap in to our trying to be like God. We don't do it on purpose. It's not something you can do. I think what we're seeing is those energy levels I just think it's pieces of time, not alternate realities. I think it's because it's not bound by time. I think you're just seeing a ripple in time. I don't necessarily think it's a spirit. I don't think he's consciously doing anything. I think he has gone into the next world. I think it's just us being in tune with something that we can't comprehend, these energies that are so outside of our realm of being able to deal with, that we're just seeing time. It's like a soldier walking. I think that's something that happened. When you see something else, it's like they'll be like, I saw a lady standing in a thing that was murdered there in 1972. I think it was such an atrocity, such a crime against God, that someone who killed this woman and her baby and this whole event, right? That I think it's just a ripple in time of the evil in that area, if you will.
So that theory, that's called placed memories.
Yeah.
Right? Like that a place, something so like psychologically tragic or significant happened there, that it's like it infused that place with that particular with that very intense story, that tragic story.
And I'm taking that outside of the angelic and the demonic, because I believe in both those as well. But I think those are very specific when we get into those.
Well, you ready for me to drop a bomb on you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So you're talking about like a Civil War battlefield, for instance, where like tens of thousands of people died there in one day. Correct. Or like the beaches of Normandy,
correct,
in places like that. So what I would say to you is that in our modern times, we are we have this idea. We operate with this secular atheist idea that that when people die, it's just final. That humans are just animals. There's no such thing as a soul or whatever. And so we don't really view places where there's been mass death as being anything significant, or as being any place significant. I mean, yes, we'll build like a non-religious memorial there.
Doesn't mean shit.
Right. Now, if you go back like 300 or 400 years in the history of the West, the first inclination that Western Christians would have with a location like that is to build a church there. Mm-hmm. And the reason for building the church there, it was not to memorialize what happened there necessarily. It would be to offer prayers on behalf of all the people that tragically died there, to help them reach heaven, to help them in the process of perfection that they're in right now. We largely don't accept that notion in the West anymore. Generally speaking, we don't even accept the notion that God exists in the West, and generally now. So I think the reason that you end up having so many things you'd call like hauntings on like old Civil War battlefields and stuff is that we've preserved them as being a historical landmark, but there is no one there offering prayers.
No one.
For their soul, for the people's souls that died there on that battlefield, or that died on the beaches of Normandy or wherever. There is not a church there offering prayers for their souls, and so I think God allows them to manifest here on earth as what we would call ghosts, in an attempt to try to petition people here to pray for them.
That's interesting.
Because the thing is, like, you can look at former Aztec lands in Mexico where there were horrendous things that were done to human beings. They were sacrificed to Aztec gods and stuff, which I'm convinced were just straight up demons. Mm-hmm. I don't even think I think it's only demons that would ever show up to a culture and say, hey, I demand that you rip out the beating heart of a human being and you let the blood run everywhere. Like that's straight up satanic and demonic. But the thing is, what the inclination of the Spanish was we need to build churches there. And you even look throughout Italy where there were vast atrocities that were done that were committed in the history of the Roman Republic and Roman Empire. There were battlefields where like the Sabines were conquered by the Latins, or I don't know if they were called Romans yet, and they were absolutely massacred. So there was an inclination there, build a church. Mm-hmm. to offer prayers for the souls of the departed. That was the inclination of those of the Christianized West, but we don't have that inclination anymore. So I think the reason that we see an increase in paranormal activity is, I think it's those souls trying to get us to pray for them. That's what I believe.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, man.
Because the thing is, like, those souls that like the ghosts that people will see at like at a battlefield, mm-hmm. They're not ghosts again that show up in front of people and they're like ooga booga.
Yeah, they do like a little
and they're not trying to scare them. What they're doing is they're usually reenacting something. They're usually reenacting something that they did in their life.
Well, most of the time they're just walking.
Yeah, they're
just
usually
walking across, man.
And I think they're just trying to make themselves known, to petition for prayers, and that's my take on it.
Definitely a possibility. Yeah. Like I said, I've just never gotten the. Yeah, no, that's a good outlook on it. I could definitely see that as a possibility. Like I said, I just think that when you get outside of the scope of that, like there's some definite clear definitions. Like I do believe in where they'll make these scary movies and be like based off true events, mm-hmm. and it's like, fucking one of the things in there
Yeah,
happens
it's
or
like
whatever.
it's like 2% of it's true, and
Yeah,
then the
like
rest they call it creative liberties that they took.
We're just we got to make it theatrical, or people want to come and watch it. It's like, fuck, dude, Jesus, right? Well, these things that we base these movies also of, like, usually they're like places, right, where great evil happened. I do think that could be a demonic force. That could definitely be a demon that is residing in there, right? What's the Annabelle doll?
Oh, she's in a museum like down in Key West, I think, or is it?
I think she's still,
Or
because those people had all that shit for the longest time,
Okay.
right? And I don't even remember what were they like Baptist or Pentecostal?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't even remember their names. Holy shit. It was a husband and a wife. And I'm not giving them any validity. I'm not saying this is my argument. I'm saying anything like this, right? Where there's a place that's evil or an object that's evil, right? I just think that's a demonic force that's attached itself to these things.
And you see what I'll say. I do not believe that a soul. I don't believe that a disembodied human soul attaches itself to objects.
And I also don't think they can cause you harm.
Right.
I don't think a disembodied human soul,
Right.
Or a damned soul can cause you harm.
Now, demons, on the other hand, can attach themselves to objects and things.
And they
like that
usually
doll.
do.
Yeah.
They usually try to attach themselves to objects.
Into a place.
And then you in a place, because they're trying to, the ultimate goal is they're trying to attach themselves to your soul. Because that's what they do, right? They're trying to win a war one soul at a time.
Yeah.
So if they can, if they can put the fear in you and you're questioning and you're turning away from, and that their whole thing is to spread, their evil, almost sounds like a bad movie plot, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is they're trying to wear on your soul and attach themselves to you, and they get you to basically turn yourself away from God. Is what they're trying to do. I'm telling you right now, I'd turn to God so fast, it's not even funny. If I saw any crazy shit happening anywhere, dude, I hear sounds at night, and first thing I do is grab my gun. Nothing freaks me out, dude. Not bears, not snakes, nothing like that bothers me. But I hear some shit in the dark, and I'm like, fuck.
So let me tell you something about the spookiest place I've ever been. Was in the Muir Woods in California, like 45 minutes or an hour north of San Francisco.
Yeah, I know where it's at.
It's the big redwood forest. In fact, I think that's where they filmed Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, Endor. I think it was filmed there. So I'm walking through the woods with a couple friends, and we're walking, and in the background you can hear water babbling. You can hear birds chirping. You can hear like leaves rustling above you and everything. And so there was a massive redwood tree that there was a road that they had tunneled through.
They'll cut right through the bitches.
So the friends I was with went down there to go and take pictures of it. And I noticed this little trail off of the main path. And I thought, this will be interesting. So I started walking down that trail.
Every side character dies that way.
So I'll tell you this. I started walking down that trail, and I stopped because I had reached a point where I felt it in my bones, like I shouldn't be here. And even further, like I guess it's the best way I could describe what I felt at that moment was it was what I would imagine a prey animal feels like when they're being stalked by a predator.
They can't see it, but they know it's there.
Yeah, it's there. And this is the weirdest thing is it was dead silent. I didn't,
no birds, insects, nothing.
Yeah, no birds, no more rustling of the trees, and also too, you couldn't hear any water babbling, nothing. There was no background noise. It was silent.
You gotta get the fuck out of
it. Yeah,
it.
and so I stopped because I honestly the first thing I thought was, is someone looking at me? I didn't know if I was going to get mugged.
Did you feel like they were? Like you could feel like eyes on you?
I felt eyes on me. So I start looking around, and I look down, and no lie, in fact, I took a picture of it. Below me was a bronze plaque, and it said on this spot stood an altar to Baphomet. This section of the Muir Woods that we were at was the original camp of the Bohemian Grove Society. And the Bohemian Grove Society, for anybody that doesn't know, it's some of the wealthiest men of the world that get together there, and they do mock human sacrifices to pagan gods.
Yeah, they like dance around like the fires naked with like animal heads and shit.
Yeah,
on, right?
and they do mock human sacrifices to the old owl god Moloch and stuff.
That's it, the owl face.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but this altar, the altar that once stood there, was one where they would do mock human sacrifices to Baphomet. And I thought, man, there's some bad juju here. Mm-hmm. So man, I turned around very quiet. I didn't want to make any noise because I still felt like I was being stared at, and I could see the main trail, and the main trail was up. So I walked back up to it very, very quietly and slowly. I didn't want to draw any attention to myself. I made it back up to that main trail, and I started walking again. And
draw attention to yourself. You think like,
well, truthfully, I didn't know what I was dealing with there. I didn't know if I was dealing with like a mugger that was stalking me, or if I was dealing with like a horned demon or something.
I just knew you were on red alert.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing. And the moment I got back on the trail, this is the weirdest thing, and this is something I'll never forget the rest of my life. The moment I stepped back onto that trail, I heard the leaves rustling again. I heard the birds chirping again. And I heard there was a little creek, and I heard water babbling again. It was almost like I stepped into another dimension. It was weird as hell.
This was you said this was right out in California, the Redwoods, right?
Yep.
Were you guys in San Francisco before this?
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah, well...
So you smoked a lot, and then you went out into the woods.
Nope.
No?
No, not a drop, not a gram or whatever the hell you would call it.
Nothing, huh?
But,
Jesus, dude.
But
that is creepy.
It was crazy. And to this day, that is the creepiest place I've ever been. And this is the thing. It was a bright and sunny day outside. It's not like I was walking in the woods in the middle of the night or anything.
That's wild, man.
But I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right that evil spirits will attach themselves to objects, to people, and to places. Because and in the same token, there are some places that you'll go to, and there's this really you can't describe it, you can't measure it, but there is this really upbeat energy there. It's a feeling of like upbeat and beauty and everything,
and
you may,
nirvana.
Yeah, and you may be the only person there. Yeah,
exactly.
So it's not like you're being influenced by other people, but there are I really do believe that there are places that have had bad things attached to them. And I think the same thing can go for homes, and I think the same thing can even go for families, and for individual people.
Well, I think home, like you said, I think homes would be a very common one, right? Because it's where we spend the majority of our time outside work and stuff like that. But you do have that, like a lot of institutions, right? Mm-hmm. Like in the past, a lot of mental institutions where you would have like these weird things happen, these atrocities would go on. And it's from people that not necessarily were like sinful or turning themselves away from God. It's that they didn't even have like God presented to them, right? They didn't grow up in Christian households. They didn't have the opportunity to go to church. They were I don't know if you're allowed to say crazy anymore. We're probably getting fucking canceled. I don't. What do you call them? Like they're impaired.
We're not going to get canceled on Rumble.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say. So you had these fucking lunatics, right? That were in this place, and they're devoid of God because they just maybe done some things, or they don't know, they don't have that relationship, and then these atrocities happen there, where like these people would get like tortured, right, by these people that were in there. I'm trying to think of some examples, and I don't mean like scary movies where they went on like murdering sprees and stuff, but they would do like experiments on them, right?
Well, like in Jefferson, Louisiana in the 60s, they did experiments. The CIA did experiments on the mentally insane in an institution.
That's
there.
the word I was looking for, instead of fucking lunatics.
Yeah,
thanks.
they would do. They would inoculate them with all kinds of diseases, and then they would experiment on them to see if they could heal the disease.
And that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about when I say torture. I don't want people to be like, I don't mean like cutting off pig
Yeah.
heads and sewing it to their bodies. I mean
No,
stuff
and we're not
like,
even talking about Guantanamo Bay level torture.
No,
This is different.
I'm talking like you said. They would inoculate them with the diseases. They would put them through like mental torture tests where they would play music for like throughout the night and only let them sleep like 20 minutes at a time. Shit like that, right? Where this great evil's happening and these people are just like being so mistreated and so like. And I think that's why when you go walk into these places, you don't even need to know the story. Someone could tell you, hey, this place, come with me. And they don't tell you anything about it. And you get to it, and it's just kind of like a rundown building. You're like, wonder what this used to be. And you go into it, and you're like, oof.
You're like, there's some bad juju here.
What's going on, man?
Well, and the reaction you ought to have is get the hell out of there, and then pray.
Yeah, exactly.
And just you should do some praying.
Yeah, but like you said, I've also been to some places, man. Out in Colorado when I was hunting, I got to the top of this mountain, and it was like the fourth mountain I've been on. So I've seen a lot of valleys at this point that were beautiful, gorgeous. Took pictures. You could have them painted and put them on a wall. They were gorgeous. But there was this one spot, I think it was on like the fourth or fifth mountain that I climbed over to. And I just looked out, and the valley wasn't any different than any other valley. The sun was still at the same level it was. It was crystal clear. Nothing special happened, but this gust of wind just came through. And then that spot, man, I just didn't ever want to leave that spot. Just something happened. It was just such a beautiful, like, all the worry off my shoulders. And just, it was this weird location. I have no idea whatever happened there or anything. I mean, it's just on some guy's land, and they've owned it for 100 years, and before them it was just woods. I don't know, you know what I mean? It was just this complete surreal feeling of just peace for so long. And as soon as I walked maybe 40 steps away from that spot, gone. And I hunted for another 3 hours, and I was on a lot of hills that day, a lot of mountains, and that feeling never came back from that one spot right there, dude. It was awesome.
I think John Denver would call that the Colorado Rocky Mountain High.
Oh, right? Yeah. You get there by taking country roads.
Yeah.
That's what it is right there. I probably just sound like a big hippie. People are like, what is this guy talking about?
They're like, Colorado, John Denver.
This guy's crazy, dude.
So what about demons?
Where do you want to go with this one? Because I got a lot on them.
Just talk to me.
All right, I'm gonna answer your question by spitfiring another quick question. Do you think it is possible? So we already said that we don't think the human disembodied people can harm, and for all intents and purposes, they can't even make contact. Like in the story with your grandmother, she reached him instantly. There's just nothing actually there, right? Because we don't have our body anymore. It's a soul. But when it comes to demons,
and he was gone.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to demons and angels, do you think that they would, and I don't mean like ding ding in the ring, do you think they ever fight over actual people or locations or anything like that? Because, people would be like, oh, my guardian angel, right? Like something just happens that's so crazy. It's like a tire will come off a bus, hit a rail, and zoom past the baby's fucking face in a carriage. And everyone's like, oh my God. I mean, do you think necessarily those are angels? Or do you think vice versa when something terrible happens where it's like, how did that happen? Do you think that is demons?
Listen, I think there's a spiritual battle happening around us at all times.
Okay.
I think you've got angels and demons constantly battling one another, and then in heaven you've got the souls of the perfected people, of the perfected the saints that are praying to God for us and praying for the angels and praying for liberation from the wicked and from demons and things. But yes, I think there's a battle going on everywhere.
Okay.
Constantly, all around us. It's not just for turf, but it's primarily for souls.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. It's not like a street war. It's so much more serious than that. It's and when I use an extreme example with the tire thing, I'm saying like it could be like the littlest thing. Like Let me ask you a question, because I know we have free will, right? I don't want to get off too much off topic, and we got all these things. But even when you're doing something that you know you shouldn't be doing, right? But there's outside forces pulling you to it, like a group of people, right? Like, come on, man. It's one time. It's not going to hurt you. Or you see some people doing some stuff that's maybe a little against moral character, right? Like they're all, even when you're young, right? Something like they're all, I don't know, just weird stuff, right? They're picking on someone or something like that. And you're being drawn to it by these people coaxing you on. Come on, dude. Come on. And you know, you get that feeling where you're like, no, this is wrong. This is fucked up,
Right.
man. Do you think that something so small like that, right? Between the decision of joining in on picking on, you know, the kid that's not as fortunate, no matter what the situation is, or, you know, I'm taking the high road. This is fucked up. I'm not doing this. Do you think that's battles between good and evil right there? Or is that just something that we do on like a free will, we made the choice kind of thing?
I actually think it's both.
Okay.
And the reason I say I think it's both is that, have you ever read the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis? You may have read it a lot, and actually, I think I remember you reading it like 15 or 20 years ago. It was the book. So the Screw Tape Letters is about.
Is that the one where the demon writes a guy letters?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the demon's name is Screw Tape.
Uh-huh.
And the demon is writing letters about tempting this man and keeping him away from living a life reconciled to God.
Yeah.
So he's very scientific about. It's not just a man. It's about multiple people that he's tempting and stuff. But it's very methodical and very scientific. And remember that you know, angels are extreme. They're the most rational being. Some of the most rational beings in the universe.
Almost to a fault, right?
Yeah. Like exceptionally rational. And so, and they're far more rational than you or I will ever be. You know, and they've been at it for a very, very long time. And so what they'll do is they know your behavior. So they'll be able to say, okay, this person is more. It's almost like the way algorithms and stuff work on social media, how they pair you up with the right advertisements. Mm-hmm. Sort of the way that the demons operate. You know, they'll say, okay, what I need to do is at this particular time, get this person to become hungry, or at this particular time, I need to expose this person to this type of thing because this stimulus will make them fall out of a state of grace. You know. And so they're very methodical and very rational in the way that they're playing behind the scenes, playing our flesh against us, and also too playing things around us against us. Now the thing is, the reason I say it's kind of both and is that obviously we have a will that they're trying to tempt. You know, it's not like they can just jump in and just say, I'm going to force you to do this.
They can only present obstacles, right?
Now at the same time, there are angels that are limiting what they can do, because the thing is, demons are only able to do to us what God allows them to do to us. Mm-hmm. And remember, like I said earlier, God tells us to regard him as a loving father, and as a loving father, sometimes he will allow things to happen to us.
The hard lessons.
Yeah, the hard lessons. Now, this is another thing too, is that demons will, demons go after, demons are not going to be interested because demons are not omniscient, they're not omnipresent, and all that stuff. So they, although they have a lot of resources, they have limited resources.
Yes.
So they're going to go after, they're going to go after souls that they think are
winnable,
are winnable for them, So they may not necessarily go against, because I don't remember what the exact verse is in the Bible, but it says, "Resist the devil and he will flee." Mm-hmm. And the reason that happens is that there is only one devil, and there's only a fixed number of demons, and they can only go after a fixed number of people in a fixed number of situations. So they're going to be working on they have to have a priority list. So if they don't think someone is going to be very winnable to their side, they're not going to be going after them. You know,
That
they're
makes
going to be
sense.
they're going to be going after people that they think are winnable. And the thing is, the people that they think are winnable are people that they're going to be going after people that they think are winnable, and they're also going to be going after people that they believe will be an immense blessing if they're fully reconciled to God. You know,
Got
so
it.
if you're somebody if you see somebody who's being plagued with what you think is something demonic, you should definitely pray for them, but realize that particular person is probably someone, if their life is reconciled to God, they would be an immense blessing in a very positive sense to those around them and to the rest of us that are living on this planet.
Absolutely. And when I say, like, because I think we do get caught up in this modern generation where, like, movies have, paved the way of what we think demonic forces is. I think even to the point of, like, hooking people on drugs or alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
Or, falling in love with food.
Yeah.
Or becoming, taking something beautiful like sex and making it like that's their characteristic. All they do is sleep around. Not to have children and start a family or anything like that, but anything that becomes an addiction, I think that's even a weapon. That I think that's the most common weapon of demons, right? And then not necessarily technology itself being evil. I love technology, but using it to basically they've taken science and used it as a weapon against God too. And I have nothing with. I think that science and religion can go hand in hand. I mix them all the time.
Well,
I think they support each other.
I think science devoid of religion inherently becomes a cult. I think it becomes a satanic cult in and of itself.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
demons use that. So we got this modern movement, right, where they're trying to kill God, and the way they do that. So it's not always the closet opening and the red eyes. Like it's not
Right.
that extreme because
Well, it's just like you can look at the trans movement, for instance, and even further, like this desire to cut off little kids' genitals and things, and then
mutilate children,
and then like all the drag queen stuff and everything, wanting to give little kids lap dances and stuff. That is, we're not dealing here with economic interests or patriotism or anything like that. We're dealing in the realm of what is spiritual, purely. There is nothing economic. There is no economic self-interest that would motivate scientists or doctors or whoever to support cutting off little boys' testicles.
No, there's not
Nothing.
a group of Bond villains back there being
Right.
like, we're going to make so much money
Right.
off of trans
Yep.
people. That's not what it is.
This stuff is demonic. In fact, there was a the apparition Our Lady of Fatima. One of the kid, actually the child that survived, that happened in 1917. She went on to be a nun, and she lived until like I don't
Weren't
know.
there like 3 or 4 children?
3 of them.
3?
And the 2 of them died early, and one of them lived a very long life up until like the late 90s or early 2000s. Her name was Lucia, and she said that the final battle would be fought over the family. Mm-hmm. That is what the aim of the devil and demons was to decimate the human family. And you just mentioned like sex, alcohol, all these kind of things. Attachments to all of those things have are contributing to destroying the family. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason that the family is so important to destroy is family is where religious tradition is passed on, or faith is passed on. And also too, if you have an intact family, it's going to be really hard to cut off a kid's balls.
Yeah.
It's
going to be real hard.
Yeah, because you're going to have parents that are going to say, hell no.
Yeah, that's insane. Exactly.
But the thing is that we are we're and I think that is where we have to understand that the paranormal, the demonic, ghosts, and even things that we're taught to identify as being like secular issues, they all interrelate.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Right? That old saying, and I know everyone's heard it, but the devil's greatest achievement or trick is convincing the world he doesn't exist. Right? So when you get these institutions like government, stuff like that, and you get these powerful people, everyone's like, oh, what a conspiracy theory. But then you see weird shit, right? Like, they're like, well, we don't even believe it. Take that out of it, man. It's all about follow the science. There's no God. There's no demons. We are our own end. Man is as high as it goes. We need to make the world as good a place as possible. And you take these elites that they preach that, and then they're doing weird shit, saying they don't believe in God, they don't believe in the devil, but they're like dancing in the woods to an owl statue. They're having like sex slave things in weird pyramids. They use occultic symbols that are weird as shit. You're like, wait a minute. You're like, I thought you guys didn't believe in this stuff. Why?
And then when you question them, they look at you and they just say, "What?"
They're like, "What are you talking about, dude? You're a conspiracy theorist." And we don't talk about that stuff. The stuff that makes the news is insane.
Yeah.
Like we got what's his name? Epstein's List. Like, let's find out who these weirdos are, man.
Yeah.
Let's jump on that and find out who's having sex with freaking children. No one cares, though. We say we do. No one does. And I think that is demonic forces. I think, like, wasn't his little thing built like what was the pyramid?
On Little St. James Island, it was essentially a sex temple.
Yeah.
And Satan. I mean, it was clearly it was satanic. I mean, the thing is, I don't think you cannot completely explain Jeffrey Epstein, and you can't completely explain a lot of what happens in the world in the upper rungs of society, devoid of understanding spiritual motivation. And the thing is, you have a lot of these people that have been taught, or you have a lot of these people. There's a particular culture, and unfortunately, a lot of elites in the world and a lot of elites in America subscribe to this whole idea that true liberty means, as Aleister Crowley would say, "Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." That what it means that and it goes back to the garden, right? Is liberty in the garden was obedience to God, right? And the lie of the serpent was no. True liberty means doing whatever the fuck you want.
Of course.
And so that is the mantra in our society today. That's what's pushed in the upper echelons of all these circles of these, and it's not even limited to any one particular group at all. It's Hollywood, it's banking, it's all these groups of people. Well, and this is not an economic movement, and this is not even just like a secular ideological movement. This is spiritual, and these people are tools of demons. And they think that somehow it's all going to work out in the end for them, and they think somehow that it's going to be a good outcome. Well, it's not.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like let's go into the sex area as an example, because I think it's the most common, right? You have like these proclivities. Is that the word I'm looking
proclivities?
for? Proclivities. Thank you, dude. Oh my goodness. So you have like where they're trying to say that they want to have sex with, they don't call them children, but they call them like young.
These are what, minor attracted adults?
Yeah, right. Like they do weird shit that's against a god. You have these other people like, and I know these, I'm picking like very niche things, but I find it like interesting. Like you have those. You ever heard of furries? The people that dress up like animals and then they do weird sex shit. I find it funny that they pick something that doesn't have a soul, but they do, right? So that they have this flesh, their body, right? They're supposed to take care of because it's carrying their soul around, and they degrade themselves to something. Not that I love cats, I love dogs. Don't get me wrong.
Well,
but
remember that animals have souls. Their souls are just different from ours. Like they're not rational.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't. Yeah,
they're just different.
You're right. Yeah, like all dogs go to heaven, right? But yeah, I get that. What I'm saying is that you have something that's made in God's image. You're absolutely right. Animals do have souls. They're different souls than ours.
You're right.
But we're made in God's image. But you take yourself and I'm going to use the word degrade. Not that I'm talking shit about animals, but like you bring yourself down to something that is on such a level beneath you, and you're sexually attracted to it, and it's like, dude, that's weird, man.
Well, and I think what you're saying is it's a desecration.
Desecration's the word I'm looking for. I'm off tonight.
Yeah, it's a desecration of God's image, which all human beings are image bearers of God, and when they when they do the drag queen thing, when they dress up as furries, when they do all this stuff, what they're doing is they're desecrating the image of God.
100%.
And I think that people that are caught up in that, and listen, I don't mean any malice toward those people. I don't hate them. In fact, you
probably pray for them.
Yes, I'm praying for them. And if they ever need anything, I'm here for them. Whatever. But the thing is, what I hate are the forces that they are that are preying upon them. And this is the thing is you can think about it. One way to think about it is demons cannot do anything to directly harm God. But what they can do is offend God by desecrating human beings, which are image bearers of God, by doing the furry thing, by through sexual immorality, and I don't want to get banned, so you can let your imagination run wild. The trans stuff, all kinds of things. These are all things that they do to try to offend God. Mm-hmm. And to try to needle him.
Exactly.
And to try to cause him pain, which they can't. But the thing is, like, Jesus, Jesus purely loved humanity. Mm-hmm. That's the whole reason that he died on the cross. That's the whole reason he came. He wept when he witnessed a friend of his die. He wept. He experienced what it was fully to be human. He was fully human and fully God. And the thing is that his, as king, right now, his heart beats for all humans because he loves us so much. And the thing is, it is like a harpoon to his heart when people are tricked into, tempted into, and brought into these rebellious, unnatural lifestyles. It's one thing for people to reject God, but it's another level to manifest, what we'd call unnatural, mm-hmm. and what we would call like a desecration.
And that's the difference between, and I think people get caught up on that. Like you said, I don't hate any of these people, right? I don't sit out there and I'm like, oh my God, I hate these people. I do. I want to pray for them. I'm like, because when you look at something, these aren't like sexual preferences in the way that like you could be like, man, lingerie turns me on. Or maybe you're a real weirdo and you're like, I really like my toes sucked, right? Something strange, right? Like these aren't sexual preferences. These are fucking weird, man, mm-hmm. right? They're outside of the norm. And the majority of people, it's such a small group of people telling us that, no, it's gold, man. It's gold, right? But
do as they will, man.
And
then
Aleister
Crowley, man.
And then the other 95% of people, like they look around and they're like, oh yeah, they're right, because they don't want to be the people. But we all agree, deep down inside, we're like, dude, that's fucked. That is weird, man. What are they doing? Like at that, I don't even know what the hell the gala is. I think it's like a fundraiser for costumes, for mm-hmm. like people that can't afford costumes. So they're like it's
Oh, is that where everybody dresses up and like
weird shit?
Yeah, and yeah, actually, that's a perfect example of like if you want to see desecration, like a lot of desecration in one place.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of like musicians and actors.
The Met Gala, is that what it is? The
Met Gala,
Yeah.
and they all get together and they like just like jerk each other off in these weird costumes, right? They get up, and I saw a couple. I didn't invest a lot of time. I was flipping through something, and like one was dressed up like a cat. Right, and I don't know if they were paying homage to something or not.
I saw that.
And
she was like meow. She said meow.
Yeah, she's like meowing to the fucking interviewer. I'm like, are you fucking serious? And they like played this bit for like 30 seconds. The interviewer is asking questions and she's meowing. And like I said, I have no details on this. I don't know if they were paying homage to something or doing something, but like, dude, that's weird, man. It's fucking weird. Like I just don't know what people are doing. You know what I mean? It's that like these guys are wearing like dresses and shit, and I don't know. It's strange.
You want to dive a little deeper?
I want to die, dude. I want to go down the rabbit hole.
All right. So why is it?
No pun intended on that one.
So why is it that the fallen angels seemingly hate humans so much? I think that's a pretty reasonable question, right? And why is it that they're wanting to spend their time trying to like make humans do all these very unnatural things? Well, I think we have to go back to the beginning, as they say, right? Like we have to go back to the beginning of all of it, and it all really begins in the garden. Mm-hmm. You had you had all the angels that were all created, and I showed you a clip earlier of that guy. He said tradition with a little t says this. So this is not like in the Bible or anything, but it's tradition with a little t. In fact, it comes from Thomas Aquinas, from Saint Thomas Aquinas, who is known as he's called the Doctor of the Angels, because Thomas Aquinas he wrote a lot. Like he's probably the foremost Western intellectual to ever live in the West. But he wrote a lot, like a lot, and he never had a shortage of stuff to talk about, write about, sing about, dance about, whatever.
I know a guy like that.
Yeah,
yeah,
right there. So he said, and this is based on like church fathers and stuff like that. That we have the Trinity. And he pointed out that isn't it interesting that it was a third of the angels that rebelled against God, mm-hmm. And what he says is that you have this hierarchy of existence of the hierarchy of the created order. Angels are at the top of it, right? Angels are above humans in it, in a sense, because we are. Angels are far more rational than we can ever dream of being. Mm-hmm. And when it was disclosed to Satan and to those that would end up following him that God intended to divinize humans, he intended on incarnating as a human, mm-hmm. or incarnating as a human being, to elevate humans to the level of angels. These angels were offended.
They're like, what?
Yeah, because and there's an argument like, it's a question, there's a question here of, are they offended that God would want to raise the level of the level of humans to the level of angels, or are they offended that God would lower himself to the level of humans? So that's a very valid question. Now, so what ended up happening was they were so offended, this third of the angels that they rebelled. And then basically what they said was, we do not support this, and in our rebellion we're going to thwart this plan. Mm-hmm. We're going to make it so that God can never incarnate as humans. Mm-hmm. We're going to make human beings so desecrated that God can never exist as a human being. We're going to make it so he can never be born, so he can never come into human reality. And
they truly thought they were doing what was right.
Yes, yeah.
Like that is their sole belief. Yep. Like they could all die on that hill. That they were like, no, we're doing what is right.
Yeah. And that's the thing is and you're absolutely right that they think they're standing up for the created order, and in some screwed up way, or in a very wrong, evil, screwed up way, they believe that there's in a way that they're standing up for what is right, that they're standing against God, God incarnating as a human being and desecrating himself, which is wrong, and then elevating humans to be to the level of angels like that, So these angels are super offended, and they're so offended that they rebel, and they stage their rebellion. They try to desecrate humanity. You can go and look at Genesis chapter 6. It says there that the stars of heaven or the fallen angel that the fallen angels came down and desecrated humanity in such a way that they interbred with humans, and that
the Nephilim,
the whole Nephilim thing.
We'll start at the beginning. I mean, from the very beginning, right? The head of the rebellion, their general, if you will, his first thing was I'll nip this in the bud before it even starts.
Yes, yeah.
He was like, if I just trick Eve, right, and I put them in a world of sin, this can never happen, because he can't inhabit or come as a body that's made out of sin, right? Because they like I said, they truly believe this. He's like, I'll nip this shit before it even starts.
Yes, and I'm going to start with the woman, because women are the ones who birth babies.
Exactly.
And if God is going to incarnate as a human,
he can't now,
right?
Because he can't have evil in him. And of course, we know that's why Mary was sinless.
Yes,
and that's 100% how we know she's sinless, because she gave birth to Jesus, who God could come in flesh.
Yeah, and that's the reason that Mary is called immaculate.
Yep.
And sinless is because if she would have been in sin and given birth to the Lord, then she would have passed on her sin to him.
And just real quick, so they know the fractions, if you factions, if you will. The 1/3 that fell were the ones that were they were set out for Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly. So the tradition says that you had and again, this is a tradition with a small t, right?
Very small t. Which makes
a cross, right? But so the tradition says that the angels were broken into factions, into thirds. 1/3 were devoted to God the Father, 1/3 were devoted to God the Son, and 1/3 were devoted to God the Holy Spirit. And that the third that rebelled were the ones that were devoted to God the Son when their leader discovered that what God had destined was to incarnate as a human and elevate humans to the level of angels. And
that's real quick. That's where archangels come in. So when we say the leader of these little fractions of angels, that's where you have the archangels. So you had
and angels are very hierarchical too.
Very, very much so. So you had Gabriel, you had Michael, right? And they both belong to their...
And then you've got angels that are in charge of angels, and angels
Uriel, Raphael, and they are part of those fractions too. This is God the Holy Spirit, and they had their little... He was in charge of over here. You had Michael, who was devoted to God's angels over here, and then Lucifer, if you will, or... What do you want to call him? Do you want to call him Lucifer?
Satan, Lucifer, whatever.
Lucifer. Okay, so you have Lucifer. I know that you can interchange.
Well, Lucifer was his name before the fall.
Before the fall, which is light bearer, or he who brings light. Light bearer.
Light bearer.
So you had Lucifer, and he was like, "Oh no, we are not doing this shit. Are you kidding me?" So he stages his rebellion. Yeah, right, and that's the 1/3 of angels that fell. And those angels, of course, followed their general, just like in Roman times. That though they loved Rome and they that was their homeland, and they would do anything for Rome, they thought Rome was being attacked. Yeah. And they were like, God, what are you doing? This is foolhardy. So they followed Lucifer. And that's what I said. They 100% believe they are doing what's right. That's why demons won't back down.
Right.
Even when Jesus confronted them and he said, "What's your name? You will answer me." And he's like, "We're many."
And the way that demons' minds work, it's very different from the way our minds work. That demons, when they arrive at a conclusion, that's their final conclusion, because they were born with all the knowledge that they will ever know.
They're already as rational as it
Yeah.
could be. They're 100%
Yep.
rational.
Yeah, and they see the full consequences of every decision, of every action, and of every piece of knowledge from the very beginning. You know, humans, on the other hand, as we live our lives and we hurl like a comet through our lives,
Just
you know,
wrecking
throughout-
shit.
Yeah, like we're constantly growing and learning more.
Yeah.
And as we learn more, we make decisions. We might go back on some decisions, and at some point you might say, you know what? I was wrong here. I'm going to change course and do this. You know, human beings, we can change our minds. You know, angels, on the other hand, don't. And so another thing that's interesting is you know, the angel Michael, the archangel Michael, is the one who threw you know, Lucifer, Satan, out of heaven.
Out of heaven, correct.
And the fallen angels, you know, Michael was the one that threw them out. And you know, Michael, in I think it's Hebrew, means who is like God, the original word. But yeah, so it's really interesting to look at that stuff, and then you look at the garden, right?
Yep.
So Satan takes the form of a serpent and says to Eve, "Oh, did God really say that you can't eat from that tree?"
I don't think he did, right? No.
Yeah. And Satan's like, you know, and Satan's like, yeah, man. Let's you need to live your best life.
Look,
you know, embrace liberty, man.
That guy's over there naming animals and shit. I bet he's hungry.
Yeah. So what does she do? She submits to the will of the serpent, and then she goes and Adam does as well.
Yeah.
You know, and so then you end up having the current order that we live in ensues. But this is the really interesting thing is, this is something a lot of exorcists say, is they'll ask the question, which human does Satan hate the most? And and people will oftentimes say Jesus Christ. Now, obviously, you know, Satan hates Jesus Christ.
It's the sinner.
Yeah. Well, but this is the thing. Angels can understand Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ rationally makes sense to fallen angels. I mean, you know, they get it. They're like, okay, this is God incarnate as a human. We don't agree with it, but we get it. The thing that they despise the most is Mary.
Oh, you're going for an actual individual person. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, Mary, the Blessed Mother. And the reason is she was born without sin. And remember that in Judah, in the kingdom of Judah, the queen was not the wife of the king. The queen was the mother of the king. And so one of the titles of Mary is Queen of the Angels. Now,
oh yeah, that pisses them off.
Now, if you're one of these rebel demons, one of these fallen angels and stuff, that must piss you off more than anything in the world. Is this lowly little woman who was not born subject to to the jurisdiction of sin, is now has not only overcome you, but is now your queen. And that's the reason that they despise her. You know, you can go back and look at Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. It's called the Proto-Evangelium. It's the first prophecy that there would be a savior. It's the first prophecy of the Lord. And what it says, you know, so the curses had just been given to Adam, that he would have to work, toil
the field, sweat on the brow, yeah.
And then the woman Eve,
birth.
The pain of child. She was given her curse, the pain of childbirth, and that she would also be subject to her husband,
and make 30 cents less a dollar.
Yeah, exactly.
All kinds of crazy shit. Yeah,
and then the serpent is given his curse, and what God says to the serpent is, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. And then some translations say, he shall crush you with his heel, or he shall crush you and you will bruise his heel. Some translations say they will crush you and you will bruise his heel. Some say she will crush you and he will bruise and you will bruise his heel. Whatever the translation is, this spells doom for the serpent, and this spells doom for that rebellious faction of fallen angels.
Yeah, they're going to lose, and that's the thing. You were making a point earlier, and I just wanted to give some background so they knew, because we just kind of jumped over the angel fractions, and I wanted to know it wasn't just like 1/3 of random angels were just like, they're like, hey guys, let's take a vote and see who's gonna ditch this cloudy place and go down. Like, it was very specific. They had a reason why they were doing it, right?
Yeah.
I interrupted you on angels coming to Earth, and you said, I find it interesting that on something they would hate, because these are the fallen angels, that they would actually lie with humans to get Nephilims. Where were you going with that?
Oh, that they were trying to pollute humanity so much, and they were trying to pollute humanity so much and to such a wide degree that God, who can only dwell can only dwell with the perfect, who could only really, God would only be able to incarnate through a perfect woman, to make it so that God could never do this.
And that was the point. So, and I'm glad you said that. I thought that's where you were going with it, and that's why I interrupted, and I went back to the Eve story. So Lucifer, well, I guess Satan at this point in time, we got to change his name now. Satan was like, I'll nip this shit early, so this can't happen.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't really succeed. So afterwards, he's like, oh, shit, now we need to try to, like you said, go after all women. We'll nip it at this point. Failed again, right? They didn't lay with all women because he had to find a woman. God had to have someone was that sin that was perfect so he could come into the physical world, right? Through Mary. Well, dude, it's almost like they use the same. They're like the Russians in modern day. They use the same tactics over and over and over again.
like classic. This is classic Russian misinformation.
Demon shit. Classic demon shit. Right. So they're going after her again. They have made not feminism on paper, modern day feminism. Right. They have made women so unnatural against themselves. Right. They have made them very masculine. Like, I don't need a man. It's not about needing a man. It's about having a partner where you both complete each other.
Right.
Like, yes, you do need a man, and a man needs a woman. It's the whole point. It's a partnership. So they've done this beautiful job of destroying modern day women and men. I'm not saying that against them, but to the point where, like, in modern society, they think by 2030 in America that 50% of men will either go overseas, right, passport bros, to find classical women, if you will. I don't know. What's the word? You're going to...
traditional?
Traditional. Thank you. Dude, I am really off today. So to get traditional women, right, or they're just giving up completely. They're just done. Like, the numbers of men that have just given up on relationships, right, they're not even having sex.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not like they're going out there and being promiscuous. They're just done with relationships. They've given up on it.
Well, and a lot of women are going to be childless.
That was my next point.
That's the biggest thing.
That's the big one.
But this is something you have to remember. Satan and demons, they have a particular hatred for women and a particular hatred for childbirth, because that is how they were defeated. That's how they were destroyed, and they have a memory of that.
Of course they do.
They despise it. They despise the ability of women to gestate life. They despise the womb, they despise babies, and they despise women. They despise feminine women. And so,
well, that's why in modern society we see that, and that goes to our point of the battle of good and evil, right? So abortions.
Yeah, and you see, and that's one of the reasons that I think all the trendy shit. It's abortions. It's taking women and giving them surgeries to make them infertile. It's trying to convince women,
giving them antidepressants to the point where they're not fertile. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
health complications.
Well, and not just that, but it's trying to convince women. Ultimately, it's trying to convince women transition to become a man.
Yes.
Have surgery to become a man.
Because remember, like you said earlier, they can understand Jesus. It's
Yeah.
Mary they hate. And they hated Eve. They didn't do shit to Adam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always women that they, and I'm not saying that. We're talking their movement, their classical demonism, right? They hate women. That is their target to go after because it is what put them on their hill.
Yes.
I think the translation would probably be she.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That could go either way.
Well,
but
and
yeah.
the thing is, there's a really good argument to be made and to be made on both sides.
And at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Right,
Because the
yeah, it
point's
doesn't.
the same. They were defeated. And like you said, it's Mother, or Queen of Angels, right?
Right.
What a slap in the face to their movement.
And they despise her because of that.
Of course they do.
You know? And so, yeah. And remember that Mary, in the Gospels, I think it's the Gospel of Luke, where she says, where Mary is being quoted, and Mary actually says, that generations will call me blessed. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, like the greatest creature that God ever created, outside of Jesus Christ, who is God and man, but the greatest human to ever exist is not even you, Nico.
Oh shit!
It's Mary. It's the Blessed
yeah,
Mother,
yeah.
and the reason it is her is that she not only would be the womb, the perfect womb that God would incarnate into the world through, but she would go on to become the queen of heaven and earth. And when I say queen, I'm not saying a queen in like the in the pagan sense of the word,
Yeah.
or like a queen, but a queen very much in the sense of the kingdom of Judah. Mm-hmm. Very like King David's mother was queen, and King Solomon's mother was queen.
And that's why Catholics hold her in such a high regard.
Right.
And you'll get a lot of these, of our Christian brothers where we get divided on, and people will be like, well, you worship, Mary when you should be worshiping. And I think a lot of that's lost. You
Right.
know what I mean? Between even Christians.
Well, and remember, worship is worship is a really weird word to use in English.
Very
Because-
strange word to use in English.
Yeah, because the thing is, people will often say, like let's say that you're paying a lot of compliments to somebody. Mm-hmm. People will say, you're worshiping that person.
You
or you're
worship
showing
that
worship
person.
to that
Or
person.
you love a band. And
Right.
they're like, you worship that band.
And that's one of the reasons that like Greek and Latin are so specific, because Greek and Latin would never say that you're worshiping a person that you're complimenting a lot, or even that you adore. You're not. That's not worship, because worship requires a sacrifice.
Yes. And there's no sacrifice being done on your
Right.
end. Yeah.
And the thing is that there is only one sacrifice, and that's the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on Calvary, of the Lord on Calvary. And so now the thing is, when you are, asking someone in heaven, especially the Queen of Heaven, to pray for you, that is not worship, but so we are kind of off track here.
Man, we have lived on the off track 4-wheel area today.
Let's do you have anything?
No, man, I think I hit all those points there.
Okay. Well, so I guess the last thing I want to say is, demons have a particular hatred for women, and they have a hatred for humanity in general.
In general, yes.
But they have a particular hatred for women, and it is because it was the womb of a woman that spelled their defeat.
That instantly defeated them.
And
Yes.
and the thing I'd say is this, is that the womb of the woman has unfortunately become the target of modern day feminism. And that is one of the things that kind of indicates to me that modern day feminism is not just a movement about economics. Modern day feminism, there is very much a spiritual component to it.
100%.
And the thing is, So let's let's circle back to ghosts.
Okay.
I want to tell one ghost story
Okay.
from American history, and then maybe we'll wrap up after that.
Okay. Well, I also have a personal story like you did earlier.
Really?
That I will hit afterwards, and I want
Okay.
you to tell me what this means, because I know I wasn't dreaming. You know what I mean? Like people have night terrors and stuff like that. But we'll get into it.
Okay.
Tell me your story.
All right, so this happened about 200 or 300 years ago. It happened in Virginia, which this area of Virginia is today West Virginia.
Okay.
So if you want to Google it, it's called it's the ghost story it's called the Wizard Clip.
The Wizard Clip.
Wizard Clip. It's a weird ass name.
Okay.
But so just briefly, there was a traveler who needed room and board, so he came and he stopped. A family had a large farmhouse, and they rented a room of the house out to travelers. And so this guy was traveling. He came and he stopped by, and he was he happened to be a Catholic, and he stopped and he rented a room. Well, while he was renting the room, staying at this house, he was only there for a short time. He died. And before he died, he said, I need to have a priest come and give me the last rites. I need to have I would like to have a mass,
Take some time off my purgatory stint.
Right, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
Well, so he died so suddenly they weren't able to get a hold of a priest. And now this is the thing. In this part, especially Virginia, there really weren't any Catholic churches in that area. America was the colonies were originally founded. Maryland was the colony for Catholics. Maryland, So
That's so disappointing.
yeah. So he was in Virginia. He died. They buried him, and they said the moment he died, all this weird stuff started happening around the house. And the reason it's called the Wizard Clip is because there was this clipping sound that was happening around the house. They heard like knocks and everything, and it really terrified the family. And so the family remembered him saying that he was Catholic, and I guess because there were no churches, they would have like traveling itinerant priests, and they got a hold of a priest, and they said, hey, we would like for you to come and like maybe bless our house or something. And they explained to him the situation, and the priest came in and he blessed the house, and a lot of this weird stuff stopped. Actually, he blessed the house, and he actually did a Catholic service, a mass inside of the house, and it made everything stop, or it made most of the stuff stop. The family ended up converting to become like the first Catholic family in the area, and for a time they still heard what they called clipping sounds in the background, like little knocks and little like. But then eventually over time it stopped. But so the conclusion that like the local bishop, the bishop in Baltimore was contacted and actually investigated it and said, yeah, this is really happening. This is real.
That's like a haunting?
Yeah. And so the conclusion that a lot of people have drawn, obviously there's no way for us to definitively say what happened. The most reasonable conclusion among like Catholic clergy and stuff, and among Catholics, is that it was the man petitioning for prayer for his soul, and petitioning to receive kind of like a final, to receive a final mass.
And because he was contacting the family basically, and the family executed that by getting a priest in there.
Yes.
And that's why over time, like you said, he was able to go.
But what's interesting is today that community, it's a very religious community. Mm-hmm. And you remember how I said earlier that God will allow certain things to happen for the betterment of the faithful. Mm-hmm. So I think in many ways, God allowed that man to go there and die without receiving the last rites, or maybe that God permitted it to happen because of the immense blessing that would occur as a result. I mean, we're telling this story now.
Yeah, exactly. And now people are going to hear the story.
And that's a very religious community, today. But it's called the Wizard Clip. If you ever want to look it up.
So let me ask
Tell me.
you a question, okay? When I was younger, so animals have a different soul, right? I don't think it's possible for animals to get trapped in between. Do you?
That's a good question. That I don't know.
Well, here's the weird thing, right? So as much as I don't believe in it, right? I had this cat. His name was, Charlie.
Oh, I remember Charlie.
Charlie.
Big cat.
34-pound Siamese cat.
He was
right?
huge.
Monster. Belly dragged on. He had health complications that kept him very fat. We had him on like special food. We tried to exercise him, all kinds of shit. He lived to be like 13. 14. He's 14.
He loved ice.
Loved ice, right? Big boy. So anyways, he passed away. And Charlie's specialty was every night he would knock my door open because I always keep it cracked, right? He'd knock my door open. It would swing open about that much, right? Because he had to get his fat ass in the room. And then he would jump up on the bed and he'd come and he'd lay on my chest and just crush me, right? And I'd always have to move him off to the side. And then that's where he would sleep until the morning, right? Well, a couple weeks after he passed away, my door opened like that. And I'm looking, nothing there. I don't feel anything jump on the bed, right? So I'm like, right? Because I was almost like out of it, right? Like I almost forgot Charlie was gone. I was like, nope, nothing, right? So I was just laying there. I'm like, who knows? I'm not investigating this, right? And then I feel that pressure on my chest, like the exact pressure of Charlie. Now, instantly, it was only there for a couple seconds and then it was gone. Now, a lot of people would say, like, well, were you dreaming? Dude, I wasn't dreaming. I got right out of bed. Freaked me the fuck out, right? Instantly got out of bed. But, people have night terrors and stuff like that. I'm not saying that this is anything special. This could have just been from the depression of losing Charlie or anything like that. But what would be the purpose of even something like that happening? So, because I've chalked this up to, dude, you were in that like kind of like awake sleep period, and it's such a fond memory, and you were very depressed because I can't see anything like that happening. Not and like I said, I love animals to death, but I can't see anything like that having a purpose for Charlie's soul. You know what I mean? Like, what he eat enough ice, or you know what I mean? Like, why would he be trapped, or you know what I mean? Like, why would he be in like animal purgatory? I don't see a purpose for animal souls to have a reason to stay on Earth. What's your thought on that?
Well, so after that happened, were you more did you feel better about losing Charlie after that?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I kind of because I was very, very sad, right? This cat has been part of our family forever.
He was a big part of your family cat, too.
But I mean, I accept it as it's a natural thing. I was just bummed, very bummed. Lost a good friend, you know what I mean? He's a loyal cat,
As long as you gave him his ice.
Yeah, I'm not dressing up like cats and shit, but, it was my buddy. He did what I wanted. Very sad. And then when that happened, it brought me to a level where I was like, oh, man. It was almost like I wasn't alone. He didn't forget me. He knew. It's like, dude, it's all right, bud. Like he was, that sounds crazy as shit, right? Like they were letting me know it's okay. Well, I'm good. And like I said, I was a lot younger than when this happened.
Well, and it could have been something that was in your head.
100%. That's what I'm chalking it up
that's
to.
a possibility, but
yeah.
But the thing is, I do think that very well could have been God allowing Charlie to let you know that he was okay.
Yeah, I mean, very possible as well. I just want to get your opinion on that, because that one's a little more harder to, I hate to say like that, it's a little harder to sell that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I can understand the other one. It makes sense because the soul needs something. Like you said, they're in purgatory to cleanse the soul. I don't see what an animal Like what he scratched the couch too much. Like that would only be to help me. That would never be to help Charlie move on. You know what I mean? Animal souls don't work like that.
Well, the thing is that could have been something that the God allowed to happen, or that God encouraged to happen for your benefit,
For my benefit.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we do agree on that's a possibility, but the animals themselves, like I don't believe there's such thing as bad animals. Animals do what's
and animals can get possessed by
that can
demons and
happen.
things
Yes,
too.
they can be. Yes,
and they infested. But the thing is, I do think that animals can particularly help, especially the way that the relationships that we have with animals today. Mm-hmm. Like that, them being close companions and all that kind of stuff. I do think animals can have a very big impact on someone's relationship with God and their orientation toward heaven. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. All right, I want to get your opinion on that. I want to see, like, is that some crazy shit? Is that outside the realm? No, nice.
Yeah. So, you know what? I've got one more story I can tell.
Ooh, I like these stories. All right, yeah, tell.
So now this isn't something that happened to me. This is actually about a guy that was canonized, which means he became a saint.
Is this the guy that flies around?
About 25 years ago, yeah.
Is this a guy that could fly?
Yeah, he could fly, he could bilocate, he could do all kinds of stuff. Well, he saw a lot of ghosts. Mm-hmm. Well, so he was at his monastery, which is like way in the country in Italy, like way out in the sticks. Mm-hmm. But he built a massive hospital there, right next to the monastery. Anyway, this little before it became a monastery, it was like an old person's home. Mm-hmm. Like a nurse, I guess, like equivalent to like a modern day nursing home. Well, what ended up happening was, I think it was around the turn of the century, there was a fire there and a lot of old people died. And there was one old man in particular that died there. I forget what his name was, but this guy, Padre Pio, mm-hmm. said that
with his little cut off Harley gloves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Padre Pio said that this man walked up to him in the monastery, and this man explained to him that he had died. That he had died in a fire, and he explained he gave Padre Pio his name, which again it escapes me. So he gave him his name, and he said, I need for you to pray for me, and I need for you to say a mass in my name. And so Padre Pio said, yes, I'll say a mass for you in the morning. And I guess Padre Pio walked him out. And he said he walked him out the front doors, and he said as the man was walking through the garden leaving, he disappeared. But he got the guy's name, and they went back and they looked at the records of the nursing home that this monastery had previously been.
You don't know the name?
It was Paul Del something. It was some very very Italian name. Very Italian.
Thank God you're not Padre Pio, or this guy would be fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
No one would be praying for him.
Yeah. But they ended up looking at the records, and they found this guy's name, and they found that he had died in a fire. Right there at the nursing home. He had
and
died
how
in
would
his
Padre
room.
Pio know that?
Exactly.
That's wild.
So it's very, and Padre Pio's a saint, and it's very interesting because that's not an uncommon thing, in particular, to happen to saints. For ghosts appear.
The Catholic Church actually made him a saint?
Yeah. Yep. It was back in the 90s.
The flying thing really bothers me, man.
Well, you know what? Maybe one night. You know what? Maybe whenever Shannon joins us, we can talk about Padre Pio.
Yeah, we need to. And I know people are going to be like, "That's what bothers you?" After everything we talked about, the flying thing really bothers me.
Well, he could also bilocate too.
can we say levitate? I don't like the flying thing.
He could do that too.
I think like we're being extreme. Like he wasn't zooming around like fucking Superman, dude.
There were eyewitnesses in the American Air Force
That he left the ground.
Yes.
I'm okay with that. Let's not say fly though. I
no,
hate
no.
the idea that this guy's zipping around the sky.
No, they were flying in planes.
Oh, stop it.
And they saw him, and they saw him fly next to them, and I'm sure he probably was like,
That's what I'm saying. I just see this little disheveled guy in these little tiny cut fingerless gloves flying through the sky.
Well, you know what? One night we'll examine the evidence.
We're gonna have a night where we talk about saints.
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah,
I like that. Yes.
And Shannon, we'll bring you in on this too.
Definitely bring you in, brother.
All right. So do anything left to say about ghosts?
Dude, I think we hit every aspect of Ghost. I think, we...
Ghost and beyond.
And beyond. Sounds like a Twilight
Yeah,
show.
exactly.
And beyond. No, dude, it was a good episode. I like that.
Yeah, so I do think the nuance, whenever you talk about ghosts and paranormal activity, I think that's missing from the culture today. But the culture is largely unchristianized now.
What are you talking about? Half of people believe in ghosts. We just...
No. What I'm saying is, I don't think people understand the underlying mechanics of what a ghost is, and I don't think people distinguish between ghosts and demons.
Oh, that's why the whole point of the show. That's why we just went over, or at least our opinions on the matters, backed by biblical evidence and small t.
Yeah.
So a lot of small t stuff.
Tradition with a small t, which ironically Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah,
we can say that's our lowercase t.
Yeah, our lowercase t expert. So, and I think that's why we wanted to go over those different definitions, is to give people, at least perspective or to form opinions on the matter, because of course half of people want to believe in something in an afterlife or something like that. So no one wants to think that your best friend's your mom, you love her so much she passes away, and you think she's gone. So of course people believe in ghosts and afterlife and stuff like this, right? And that's why we present the evidence like we do, so they have an understanding of it.
Well, and I think one of the biggest problems is today people the idea people have of heaven is that it's just this it's this floaty place with a bunch of like
clouds,
smoke and clouds, and everyone, and you're just up there just playing harps and stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing is that's not what it is at all. And I think people have this notion that when people die, it's over, the work is done, the process of their life is done.
Yeah, just enjoy now. You're eternity rocking it.
Yeah, but in reality, most people when they die, they still have a lot of work to do. But in certain senses, after they die, if they go to purgatory or they go to heaven, they're more alive in many ways than we are. Mm-hmm. Now the damned, on the other hand, they're far more dead than we could ever even imagine.
And it's important to remember, like we said, real quick, just to kind of full circle. I know we're wrapping it up here. When I said that the devil and the 1/3 of demons, fallen angels that went with him, they truly believe what they're doing is right.
Right.
Remember, just because they rebelled against God, right? These angels, these are still angels.
There's fallen. One's in rebellion.
They're in rebellion, right? They believe in their cause. When you sin on earth, right, we always act like the devil's going to party it up with us, right? He hates you. So when you go to hell, you got to remember, he already hates you because you are human, right? He thinks you're disgusting, and he knows for a fact that you chose to go against God's orders, and that he thinks he's fighting for righteousness.
Right.
So he hates you even more. Not just because you're human, right? And you're being elevated. He knows that you turned your back on God, right? And Satan thinks he's doing the just work in this. Yeah. He knows that you're not. So he hates you. So of course, when you're down there, you're completely hellish, just being completely dead, devoid of God.
Yeah.
As far removed from God as possible, because that's what you chose. That's what you wanted. Right? So yeah, full circle on that. Just wanted to go out there.
All right. Well, I guess we're on for next week.
Yeah, and I left ghosts again and went back to demons. Holy shit, dude.
Well, you know, the thing is, I think in our modern culture, I think when you talk about ghosts, it encompasses much more than just what ghosts are.
Yes.
You know, that's the thing. There's so much confusion about so many things. But ghosts and the paranormal, I think there's a lot of confusion there.
Yeah, a lot.
You know?
All right, brother. Good podcast.
All right.
Next week, we'll see what we're going to do.
Exactly.
All right. Much love, brother.
You too.
Peace, guys.